Hi, Julian. How's it?
Hi there, Siddharth. Great to see you again and hear from you. How are things on your side?
Hot as hell. It's so humid in Durban.
Yes, it's been similar here in the Cape. Unprecedented, historic heat and humidity with thunderstorms along the garden route, which are quite unusual for this time of year. Definitely a change this year compared to last.
Yeah, that's true, hey. Well, as usual, it's always a pleasure to actually have you on, especially on a topic that's been getting a lot of conversation, especially on the US-Iran war. And yeah, I'm really happy to have you on to get your thoughts on it. So to get the ball rolling, Julian, what was your initial reaction when the US-Iran conflict escalated into open war? Do you think it could have been avoided?
Initially, this war could have been avoided. There were negotiations going on. America had sent some negotiators to Iran to talk with their people. And the problem is that while the negotiations were undergoing, the attack was launched. And so, although it could have been prevented, somehow something happened in the American camp with the US, inspired by Israel primarily. That was the main instigator. Seems to have pushed aside any hope for negotiations, even though there were potentially some on the table. It looks like there wasn't really an appetite for negotiation or meeting or a middle ground, especially in the, should I say, the Zionist camp, because it's not primarily the USA. It's primarily Israel, and within Israel, the Zionist faction, who have been pushing for some kind of regime change in Iran. So even though Iran may have been willing to negotiate, it looks
Mm.
like the Zionist camp didn't really want to go along that route. And so they actually um, threw a real spanner in the works of those negotiations. And at this stage, it looks like negotiations no longer possible at all, based on past history. Because remember, this was not the first time that Israel struck during a negotiation. It happened also a few months ago in 2025 during the 12-day excursion between Israel and Iran. So I have a feeling that, and it looks like based on the evidence, that there was no real interest in negotiating. It was more just a front on Israel's side. And now we see where the chips have fallen.
Yeah, that's true, hey. But then in terms of your initial reaction, like were you shocked or did you like expect it in a way?
Right. No, I wasn't shocked at all because this has been building up for some time. This unrest in the Middle East has been going on really for years. If you want to take it back, you can go back as far as 9/11. At the 9/11,
Mm.
within a week after 9/11, there was rumors are going around. Of course, these are just rumors from what I've heard, that at that time already there was a decision to attack 7 countries in a short space of time. And those countries included those who we saw fall in recent years. Libya, for example, Iraq, obviously, Lebanon, who's being attacked repeatedly. Syria also has been attacked. We haven't really seen much happening in Sudan, although there is some unrest there. Somalia, of course. And finally, Iran was going to be the 7th country on this list. So some people are saying that this conflict goes back, if not before, then certainly up till the 9/11 and the Patriot Act and the decision at that time to invade 7 countries in 5 weeks or months or whatever it was at that time. This is going back 25 years now. Finally, we're seeing Israel's desire being fulfilled. So I wasn't particularly shocked at this outcome. Iran was always in the crosshairs of the Zionist regime in Israel. It was only a matter of time, really, before this exploded, as we're seeing today in 2026.
True. All right. There's a comment question for you here by Jitin Rishka. Hi, Julian. Do you think the US or Israel have fears that Iran's nuclear plans are much greater and ready to defend Palestine, hence Israel's interference?
The nuclear plans, let's remember that going back historically, Iran had a moratorium on using nuclear for weapons. There was, from the Shah himself, you could call it a fatwa, a ruling that they would not produce nuclear weapons. There may be uranium enrichment for energy purposes, and that was always clear from the start. So this idea that Israel or America had to defend itself against a potential nuclear armed threat, I believe, and based on some reports, was speculation and was overhyped and was never really a threat whatsoever. So those fears are unfounded. Actually, that wasn't the real reason for this particular invasion, from what it looks like.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
As for Palestine, of course, Palestine's part of the equation.
Okay. Oh, sorry, I actually interrupted you. Was there anything else you wanted to add there?
Well, Palestine being part of the equation, Iran, of course, may favor the rights of the Palestinian people to some degree, but those are background features. That's the main issue was that Iran never planned to develop a nuclear bomb or attack. Iran has been quite defensive, quite civil about their negotiations, and never really had a particular plan to attack, at least not on the surface. So it was never really a major threat.
Yeah, true. Given the recent military strikes and retaliation across the region, how serious do you think the risk is of this becoming a wider Middle East war?
Yes, there's a high risk. And we can see now in day 21 or so, 3 weeks into this actual conflict, that the war has expanded to the wider, broader Middle East region for a start. After all, after the initial attacks, Iran has retaliated quite extensively already. So they've already brought in at least eight other Middle Eastern countries. So this is definitely a regional skirmish now. Iran bombed Bahrain, anywhere where the US may have had military bases. Those military bases were attacked. Iran saw it as justified in attacking the military bases of the aggressor. So that meant attacking Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, which had the biggest US military airbase. In Bahrain, of course, they had the Fifth Fleet, which was US's biggest naval base. And those have been quite badly damaged. In the UAE, we've seen in Abu Dhabi and in Dubai, even though these aren't always military US bases, they are places where economics is being is a main source of income. The finance world, finance is a lot of money flows to Dubai, and a lot of Western money. And Dubai was often seen as a safe haven of sorts. Then you also had Saudi Arabia, which was attacked, Jordan at another US base, Oman, and then Iraq. The US embassy, the consulate, was bombed in Iraq. So that's already 8 countries. If you want to include Israel, that's 9 countries. So with Iran, that makes 10. It's pretty much the entire Middle East region is now and some level of conflicts, or definitely involved in the war, because there's going to be fallout and there are going to be repercussions. Not only that, but if you look at Israel, we don't get the information. There's a blackout, the media blackout, obviously, during the time of war. There's a threat of instant imprisonment for people who send photographs of any of the war damage. So, of course, Israel's trying to contain the narrative by hiding any of the damage which has been inflicted by Iran. However, information is coming out regarding the main train station in central Israel, which has been bombed. That train line now has been somewhat damaged. And so there has been a lot of damage inflicted on Israel, which hasn't really come out in the mainstream media anyway. So the broader Middle East has been fully brought into this conflict, if you want to call it that. How many countries does it take before you call it a world war? At what point does a regional war become a world war? We have to start asking these questions, because it's not just the Middle East. It's not just those 9 or 10 countries. So many other nations are impacted and are involved militarily, although we may not know about it. Obviously, China and Russia are in the background. Germany has just militarized. They are now going to become a huge exporter of military weaponry. So there you go. Multiple countries involved. So this conflict has taken the entire Middle East and is going to spill over into numerous other conflicts. And you may not want to call it World War III. Just like Russia didn't want to call the invasion of Iraq a war. They said it's a special military operation. Similarly, this little incursion by the US and Israel, it's just seen as a small military operation, but actually, in the bigger scheme of things, the front and the theater of war has expanded from Ukraine into the Middle East, even though the Ukraine war is still going on. So the war has expanded massively in recent years. And I was calling for World War III a while back already, because these wars are all interconnected. This is not; these are not separate skirmishes. These are all involved in the Great War, if you want to call it that.
Sure. All right. There's another comment question here, again from Jitin Rishika. I think the war is a distraction from the Epstein files because high-profile people are mentioned. My opinion, though.
Yes, there is talk about Operation Epstein failure, or whatever you want to call it, instead of Epic Fury. So there is talk about how this could well be a distraction. After all, some of the high-profile people in America may be involved. And not only that, but there's enough information out to report that Epstein may well have been a Mossad agent himself. He was working for the Israeli government, potentially, or so the rumors are going around. So definitely a lot is going on behind the scenes that is not being revealed in the media. The media is totally controlled, the mainstream media. And so this could very well be a distraction. Not only that, but Netanyahu himself also needed a distraction, because he was wanted by the world court, international court. He could be arrested in any country almost, that has affiliation with that international court. So he himself was trying to avoid international pressure, political pressure and criminal pressure, as well as pressure from his own opposition within Israel. So there were many reasons why they had to push a distraction of some sort like this war. However, this war was always on the cards. The attack against Iran has always been on the agenda. Even Venezuela, Iran, these are countries that are oil rich. These often economics leads and politics follows. And oil is the foundation of a lot of the world's economic system. obviously. And so, we have to look at multiple reasons. And so the distraction from the Epstein files may have been a big part of it. But there are many other factors as well.
True. There's growing debate about whether the war was justified or based on questionable intelligence. What's your perspective on that?
The war was not justified. Even Tulsi Gabbard herself, the director of national intelligence there, who oversees a lot, said Iran was never a threat. There was no threat of a nuclear bomb by Iran. And she stated this categorically. However, she was shut down by Trump because Trump seems to be under pressure by Netanyahu, and whether it's because of the Epstein files or whether it's because they have some other leverage or the Zionist lobby that has captured basically the United States government, seem to be applying a lot of pressure. Therefore, he didn't listen to Tulsi Gabbard. Not only that, but just recently, in the past 2-3 days, the head of counter-terrorism, Clark, was that his name? Clark Kent Clark.
John Kent.
Yeah, he resigned. Now he was.
Yeah.
Clark. He quit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think his name was actually John Kent.
He basically quit. Kent. Yeah. So Kent basically quit just 3 days ago, and he was under Tulsi Gabbard, and he was the head of counter-terrorism. And there you go. He publicly stated that he could not align himself with this particular invasion of Iraq. So there you have not only Tulsi Gabbard, but Kent as well, top people in Trump's government saying that, no, it was not justified. Not only that, but as I said, Iran had a moratorium on nuclear weaponry specifically. So it was completely unjustified. There's a much bigger picture going on than simply the threat of nuclear terror from Iran.
Yeah, it's true. I just went on to ChatGPT. It's actually Joe Kent. So my apologies on that mistake.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Joe
all right.
Kent.
There's a comment
publicly
from,
resigned.
Yeah, he was actually the first person actually from what I just saw on ChatGPT. So that's pretty hectic. So all right, there's a comment question here.
Yes.
Yeah, there's one from Silent Dog.
Decapitation strike.
Yeah, the decapitation strike could never be justified. It is the definition of perfidy.
Yes. Look, Israel has initiated, and it's their tactic. It's the Zionist military tactic, the decapitation strike. You go for the head, so to speak. They've done it in the past. We've seen it in the last war a few months back. This time around, of course, they went for the Shah. They took out the Shah himself, the leader of Iran. And it has only incited more resistance, because that Shah was the one that declared the moratorium on the nuclear weaponry specifically. And, because of the culture of Iran, they're more defensive. They're not an attacking regime by nature, from what it seems. However, since these attacks have occurred and numerous of their heads have been taken out in assassination, it has now given them justification to do likewise. And that's what we're seeing now. We used to see restraint, but now there's not going to be any more restraint. So they've kind of unleashed they've struck the hornet's nest and unleashed even worse problems potentially. There are rumors of decapitation strikes to Israel's regime as well. We don't know how valid those rumors are because of the media blackout as to which of Israel's leadership have been eliminated in the military strikes or not. But there are rumors going around. So Iran is certainly justified to retaliate. But, as we know in war, the international order and the rules-based system has disintegrated. at this stage. We're seeing unprecedented, if you want to call them crimes, war crimes, whatever it is, the rules have been changed, and the previous restraint or etiquette or rules which may have been there have been thrown out the window. And so anything's possible at this stage. Even not only the destruction of oil and energy sources, but water sources. As we know in the Middle East, very water scarce region. 80% of those countries rely on desalination, and almost exclusively on desalination, including Iran. Their desalination plants are now being hit here and there in Iran, and then also Iran is retaliating and hitting other nations, their desalination plants. So this would have been perhaps not really proper etiquette or professional conduct by the military traditionally. But at this stage, all those rules have fallen away. So anything's possible going forward.
True. How do you think this conflict is impacting ordinary people, both in Iran and across the region, beyond the political narratives?
Yes, well, beyond politics, with the Shah assassinated, that is a massive. That's like killing the Pope for the Catholics. He was their world leader for that particular brand of Islam. So this has affected people, not just politically, but religiously, culturally, and even historically. Not only in Iran, but the other countries that may favor this particular brand of Islam. Pakistan, for example, and other countries have been heavily affected by the death of the Shah. However, Iran has what's called depth of leadership. So they've trained for this, they've practiced for this, for decades, where you can take out one head, but they will have multiple reserves, deputies that are trained. Not one deputy, 7 deputies. So you can try ruin the system by taking out the religious leader, but someone will simply take his place. It's a system which has been engineered to handle this kind of decapitation strike. Of course, the new Shah came in. He was apparently also injured. Nevertheless, he may be even worse than the predecessor as far as revenge or anything like that. So certainly not only Iran, but other countries will be very heavily affected by this, mourning and jihad. Who knows to what level? The sleeper cells in the US are rumored to be now operational. They may want to retaliate in some way, allegedly. So, okay, we won't say that. That's more political, isn't it? But, in a religious sense, in a cultural sense, Iran and the Muslim world has been really triggered by this. Not only that, but by striking Dubai, Iran has really changed the Middle East for years to come, because Dubai is no longer considered a safe haven to park your capital, to park your assets, because those countries are now refusing people to withdraw their funds. It's been capped at a certain percentage. People are now rushing for the exit in the Middle East, trying to leave those neighboring countries, but they can't get their money out. So this is setting a precedent because people are going to think twice about investing their money into those countries in future. So not only culturally and religiously, but also economically, the Middle East has been changed irrevocably for decades to come. This is going to really impact Dubai and the UAE and numerous other countries there, which thought they were a safe haven in the past. So this is not going to go away in a hurry. We're going to have the knock-on effect for some time to follow.
True. Okay. Oh, yeah. With rising oil prices and global economic pressure, do you think this war will have long-term consequences for the global economy?
Yes. The rising oil prices are are also not going to go away for a while. The economy is going to take so much strain. This is actually historic. It's unprecedented. I don't think people are even aware of how impactful this is going to be economically on the planet. When you had the previous Iran war, the real big Iran war was around 1980, when the Straits of Hormuz were closed for a while. I think it was the Iran-Iraq war at that stage. United States were backing Saddam Hussein, and Iraq attacked Iran. The Straits of Hormuz were blocked for a little while, but at that stage you had maybe 4 million barrels of oil a day passing through the straits. At the moment, now in 2026, we have 16 million barrels a day passing through the Straits of Hormuz. And already at that time, you had the Volcker shock, the economic shock, where Fed Chair Volcker had to then put a huge interest rate hike, up to 20%, unheard of in today's terms. And there was a big economic recession. And they sorted that out. That was for a block of 4 million barrels. What's going to happen now that 16 million barrels of oil have been blocked? The Straits of Hormuz are now down to the 90% closed. Iran may be allowing certain tankers through who pay in yuan. So it's a goodbye to the petrodollar. It's now the petro yuan. So Chinese tankers will be allowed through. Even South African tankers will be allowed through because we're part of the BRICS nation. We're not. The ANC is not aligned really with the USA and Israel. They're more aligned with Iran, pro-Palestine, as we've seen, taking Israel to court and so on. So anyone who renounces or denies or does not align with the United States can still trade through the Straits of Hormuz. Not only that, South Africa also receives a lot of oil from Nigeria. So we ourselves may not be affected. Nevertheless, the price of oil is still up above $100 a barrel at the moment. In some places, 120. It's very volatile at the moment. So the entire global economy is going to be affected. Not only that, but with the shutdown, the supply chain, the global supply chain, not only of oil, but of fertilizer, has been disrupted. And fertilizer, ammonia, urea, these kind of things are what help our crops grow to feed the hungry world. There are many billions of people now. You need a lot of food, and it has been stimulated by fertilizer. If you stop that fertilizer production, which has already been stalled because of the blockage of the straits, the farmers won't get their fertilizer to grow their crops, to produce the food to put on the shelves. And in America, for example, you can either grow soybeans or corn. But because corn takes more fertilizer, the farmers there are now opting to plant their crops this year as soybeans. And they can use soya to feed cattle or whatever it may be. But the problem is that there may not be enough of crops for plant-based fuels, which America relies on. There might not be enough food produced ultimately. So economically, when the supply chain is disrupted like this, not only oil, but on multiple levels, then we see it takes many months to come back online. We saw that during COVID. Even if you were to open the Straits of Hormuz tomorrow, it'll take a week or two for the insurers to start insuring those ships again, because the insurers have cut insurance on any of those ships going through the Strait of Hormuz. So that in itself is going to take some time, and all those ships that are lined up there waiting to pass through, there's a huge backlog. So economically, even if the war was to stop tomorrow, there's going to be ripple effects felt for many months going forward, and we really need to prepare for worst case scenario still.
Lastly, Julian, looking ahead, do you see this ending in diplomacy, prolonged conflict, or regime change? And what factors will determine that outcome?
Well, diplomacy has been torpedoed out of the water. We saw that in 2 attempts already during negotiations to engage with Iran, the first one in the previous war, and now again, they attacked while negotiations were ongoing. Not only that, but they also assassinated one of the most friendly negotiators. One of their recent assassinations took out one of the top negotiators in the Iran regime, who was actually the very person doing the negotiating with the United States. And the reason for that is because the Zionist alignment don't really want to negotiate. It's already been clearly stated by others that the people they sent, Jared Kushner and Witkoff, Witkoff was aligned with Israel from the start. Israel never wanted to negotiate. And so Trump is basically, under pressure, and somehow they have an influence over him, the Zionist regime, Netanyahu. Kushner, of course, is also very much aligned with that. So I don't think there'll be any room for negotiation. Not only that, but Iran will look foolish if they try for a third time now to go try to negotiate in good faith, when both previous times they've been slapped in the face. So diplomacy has been ruined. There's also going to be no regime change, because with the depth of leadership, they don't need any regime change. They can try to foment rebellion on the ground, and revolution, a color revolution, as they do in numerous countries. And it will be that attempt. And certainly there are liberal people in Iran who may want, more so-called Western or open democracy. Nevertheless, the leadership under the Shah is still very much in place. So there'll be no regime change in a hurry. There'll be no negotiations. And so the only conclusion is a prolonged and protracted war. That's from what I've read and from my opinion and based on history. Because this is unprecedented. We've got to understand this is, we've never had this kind of crisis in the history of modern history anyway, since World War II, shall we say. We thought the Iraq-Russia war was big, and it was, because it was unprecedented. But look where we stand today. That war's still ongoing, and here we are with yet another one on top of that. So this is all pretty much a bigger plan by the United States to cling to power. We are seeing here the end of empire and the last throes of the US petrodollar, and the leadership of the United States being tested and coming to its natural conclusion, its natural end. However, they don't want to go down lightly. They'll go down fighting. But China is sitting behind the scenes watching. Also, of course, supplying weaponry and satellite intelligence. Russia, similarly, obviously assisting, because Iran is their front line. They are supplied by Iran. And it is the front line because it's the closest to the West, really. Trump took out Venezuela to control oil, which could have been going to China. So indirectly, this is a grab for power and a push against China. Iran is just a proxy for China and Russia, you could say. You have the BRICS alignment and you have the NATO alignment. And this is a big showdown. So it's not just Israel versus Iran. It's a global confrontation at the end of the United States empire. Now, China is being very strengthened, obviously, by this. They are losing no men. They are losing no battleships or drones. They are observing and learning rapidly on the ground about the modern asymmetric war. Russia, similarly, is not losing in this regard. They are also watching and learning. The United States are taking losses, as we see in their aircraft carriers, their military bases. They have lost control of the Middle East. They no longer have safe military bases anywhere in the Middle East, certainly not to the strength that they had just 3 weeks ago. That is now gone overnight. America, the United States have lost that foothold that they've had for decades, and they've gone almost a step too far because they've unleashed and given justification to Iran to really up the ante, to go to the next level. America is, United States and the dollar are going to suffer tremendously as a result of this. To keep their domination, they will try to prolong this war and maintain their control. It depends on what happens in Israel on the ground, on what bombs actually get through the Iron Dome and hit Israel. If they have any assassinations of Israeli leadership, do they have depth of leadership? What happens if their bases, their military bases are taken out, their oil refineries, their nuclear plant? What about if Israel's entire system is compromised because of Iran's bombing? That will really put a spanner in the works of the Greater Israel Project, which is also part of what's really going on here, which includes the desire to expand the borders of Israel to include numerous other countries, which is why they're attacking those numerous other countries around the borders of Israel. And so the Greater Israel Project is religiously driven. It's somewhat politically driven. Ultimately, it is politics. It's economics. Even beyond politics, it's economics. That's what the West are doing in the Middle East. They're trying to control the flow of oil. So all of this is interconnected. And because you have a rather enthusiastic bunch of not only Jewish Zionists, but also Christian Zionists who feel that they are God's chosen people and therefore justified to bring about the Greater Israel and the Zionist agenda of the so-called type of end times that they think they're involved in, they may start acting quite even more irrationally, shall I say. It's already irrational. They may go even further. Logic will go out the window because, anyone who's driven by ideology will certainly fight to the death, and may become more irrational. It's not simply money to them or economics. There's some kind of prophecy going on there in the Middle East, in Israel, and this push is part of some kind of prediction of theirs where it comes to this big clash and there's a fallout and they can perhaps take the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which for the first time in history, they have actually shut to Muslim worshippers during Ramadan, and not only shut to worshippers, but shut to the priests who used to oversee the Al-Aqsa Mosque. There used to be Muslim imams and so on, sanctioned by other international countries to caretake and come in and do prayers and worship, even if the public weren't allowed. Now, for the first time, Israel has even blocked that. Not only that, but they've also blocked access to one of the biggest Christian churches, most important Christian churches in Israel during these particular times. So these are unprecedented levels. And if they do try to take the Al-Aqsa Mosque, it will certainly only amplify already the concerns and the desires for revenge which are there with the Shah having been assassinated and so on. And that Al-Aqsa Mosque is all part of the plan of the Israel prophecy and the Zionist prophecy specifically for the Greater Israel and the New Israel and so on. And if they try to take that, then certainly that's the last straw, really, because then the chips will fall quite severely. Then the gloves are off for sure. I mean, they're already off, but it could get much worse. So this is a protracted, ongoing conflict, and it's been building up for many years, and it's just come to an head now. Krishna himself is definitely in the Zionist camp, and he has the ear of Trump, and I think Trump somehow went along with their desires and he unfortunately didn't follow his advisors. He went along with the messianic Israeli Zionist plan, and it's backfiring quite badly for him at the moment. So I think it could become quite dangerous for all concerned in this war, and certainly for the entire planet. Therefore, we need to really take it seriously, become prepared for the economic downturn, as well as whatever repercussions might be there going forward. All the people, everyone on the planet at the moment is going to be impacted by this.
True. All I gotta say that thanks so much for your time, Julian. Very insightful, and hope to catch up with you again in the future.
Sure. My pleasure, Siddharth. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat. It's a very important topic. So let's do it again sometime soon, whenever you feel.
Sure.